came back to the States in 15, I thought I was going to come back, be in New Orleans for a year, get accepted in early retirement, retire in 2017. So when I published in April, I genuinely thought I would be able to be approved for early retirement this past August and be on my way out.
Mm-hmm.
They closed early retirement. So that part of the plan went away.
Of course.
It did. Of course. What I should have done, and here's where the culture thing kicks in.
Well,
I didn't want to go up in New Orleans. Go ahead.
I was going to say your problem is that you planned. No, all kidding aside.
I did.
So go ahead.
No, you're right. My problem is I planned. I didn't want to be the guy. You've been in 10 years. You understand?
Yeah.
You don't want to have the guy that shows up at the short timer. Like, you don't want that guy at your unit.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that guy. So what I should have done is I should have, in Saudi, applied to retire early, come to New Orleans, say, hey, guess what? I got 10 months left. Leave me alone. And then I would have retired 1 October 2016. That's what I should have done.
Uh-huh.
I should not have cared about being that guy who's that short timer at that unit.
Yeah.
But I cared. Because I cared, now I get 5 more years or 4 more years.
Surprise.
I know, surprise. But to answer your question, I'm confident because I know the shit works. That's why I'm confident.
Uh-huh.
I'm confident because I've heard enough stories. I've seen enough experiences of where transition goes right or goes wrong. Whether it's people, enlisted members who make warrant, whether it's officers who do promote, whether it's officers who don't promote. I've seen it being, I hate to say in the trenches, because I hate using military metaphors in a non-military sense, but I've seen it being alongside serving for and serving over people who've had the experience of transitioning, both good and bad. I've seen it firsthand. And I've already been through, I went through TAPS 4 years ago, and I got a lot of lessons out of TAPS. But TAPS is not enough.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
What do you think?
My metric now is that for every year that you're in, expect a month of not doing anything.
Yeah.
It's like what you did when you got out of the Marine Corps. You spent 3 months just decompressing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, verbatim, I said, I'm going to party. Like, I said, because I'd spent 10 years in, and I was in Okinawa on my last duty station, and I didn't take any leave. In fact, the only leave I took was, maybe a couple of days off of a 3-day weekend or something like that. But I knew I was getting out, and I go, I'm just going to party. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to party. I'm going to do all the things I wasn't able to do. I'm going to grow a beard for as long as I can until reality kicks me back in the butt and says, okay, it's time to get back to work. So I know that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that you wrote a book that you would want. So how did you come across all the information? I mean, it's riddled with relevant and professional and really actively going to get what you want information that seems like it would have been written by somebody who's gone through the process, and you kind of put yourself in that process already by going through TAPS with the mindset that you're about to transition. But how did you fill in the gaps of what you didn't know about?
So I talk about early in my book the choices that drove my career. And essentially, there's really only 4 choices, 4 big oh shit moment choices that drove my career. The first one we talked about was getting accepted to the Coast Guard Academy. Like, making the choice to go and join a military academy is a huge undertaking. And I didn't think about a lot of it then because it was pre-9/11. But, when you sign up as a 17-year-old kid and you think you're going to do 9 years, you're giving up a decade. Like, you're signing up at 17 to say, you've got me until 27.
Yeah.
Next question. That's huge.
Yeah.
So there was that choice. The second choice that I made was to really go for a lieutenant, to go for 03. I got passed over for 03 the first time. I had a great assignment, but some bad experiences on my ship. And I didn't realize, again, this is not having an honest conversation, I didn't realize my CEO had written my evals in a way that I should not have promoted. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He didn't tell me that. No one told me that until I didn't promote. So I'm like, well, what happened? There are ways and evaluations you can end people's careers, and they are used.
Yeah.
So I got lucky, honestly. I was with a command and with an 07 who sat me down, who were honest with me, and said, hey, do you really want it or not? And I said, I do. I really do want it. And they put me on a plan that got me to lieutenant. But they just could, I could have just easily said, you know what? My CEO burned me. I'm done with this. I'll be out in 5 years. That was my original agreement. I could have done that, and my admiral and my 05 would have accepted that and helped me accordingly in that same direction. Yeah. So there was that choice. The third choice I made was to go to grad school. So I got picked up for grad school, Coast Guard funded grad school, 2008. When you go to grad school, there's always obligated service after grad school. So going to grad school for a year obligated me for service for 3 years. And you can't get out before that unless you want to pay the grad school back. Yeah. So I knew going to grad school, I was in for 12 years. And I knew it was a lower risk decision for 04 by going to grad school. Now, granted, the service makes it clear, going to grad school is not a guarantee for promotion. However, at that time, grad school officers were more than likely selected in normal officers for promotion. So that was a choice for me that brought me to 12 to 13 years that got me into this era of, well, are there retirements out there? Maybe just go for that.
Yeah.
And then the fourth decision I made was the decision to go to Saudi Arabia. Was that decision to, I'm going to take a high-risk decision not to promote to enjoy what I can do. Those decisions are choices that, to me, have the same weight as that choice that a member makes to transition. If we talk about the 4 transition gates, there are 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and 25 years. So those 4 choices, to me, approximate the 5-year choice about, do I want to make 03? The 10-year choice about, do I want to go to grad school? And the 20-year choice of, what rank do I want to retire as if I retire in 20 years? So I've made these choices, and I often wonder, would I have made the same choices if I had more information, different mentors, different advisors, if I had different support, if I was more of an entrepreneur like I am now? Would those have been the same choices had I taken a different tack? So when I talk about, the stance of transition, it's really the stance of, how do you choose to serve more so than transition? Do you choose to serve aggressively, totally in uniform? Then run with it. If you don't, then run with that. But know what that is. And that's how I was able to help fill in the gaps, because those were the gaps I had, and I know some of my friends have had at those same points. And now I'm at a point where, some of my friends now are looking at 06, and they're thinking, well, what 05 jobs do I take to be 06? Or I hear 06s now who know they'll never make flag because the 06 assignment panel never gave them the job that would put them on a flag officer track. So I'm learning now everyone has the same set of problems. Everyone has the same dissonant and resonant experiences, but it's a question of having the right tools to help each person uniquely and separately identify the greatest need for their experience, what most resonates from their definition of service.
Gotcha. How do enlisted personnel relate to the information that you have to offer?
Same way, exactly the same way. So right now, it's funny. You've read in the papers recently about the Navy talking about getting rid of ratings. And then Navy Personnel Command, NAVPER, decided that they would not get rid of ratings, that they would keep ratings, because so many of the sailors complained about losing their identity. I think the Navy should get rid of ratings and be done with it tomorrow. Let's just finish it. Because ratings don't matter for civilians. Now, are they steeped in culture? Sure. But I don't join the Navy to be an SO1. I joined the Navy to be a SEAL. So what are those skills that help me to be a SEAL? Well, I want those skills. I don't join the Navy to be a pilot. or a flight mech or an ABM, I joined the Navy to work on planes. It relates to the enlisted question because the enlisted corps, this is across the naval services, is driven by this archaic, outdated thing called a rating. Mm-hmm. We put a lot of responsibility to the rating. Well, my assignment history is based on a rating. My promotion ability is based on a rating. My peer group is based on a rating. We give the rating a lot of cultural power when none of that exists as soon as that enlisted member leaves the uniform. So the principles to me are the same because the principles transcend that need, that crutch that a rating provides. They're exactly the same because it's the skills that we learn across the board. If you're an officer, you learn how to lead bigger and larger groups of people. Of course, that's a skill. If you're an enlisted member, you learn how to increase your proficiency with a specific set of skills up to the point of E7. That is your goal. And that goal translates to being a novice, apprentice, journeyman, and master in the civilian service. The principles are the same. And the contract conversation is actually more explicit as an enlisted member than an officer because as an officer, I'm commissioned. If I promote, I stay in. If I don't promote, I'm done. It's pretty simple. Yeah. So if you're an enlisted member, every 3 to 6 years, you get to re-up. Now, granted, you've got retention counselors. I don't have retention counselors. It might be a service thing. It's probably a cultural thing, but there's no retention counselor saying, hey, officer, you need to stay in. Mm-hmm. That's what branch's job is for the officer corps. Okay. So, every 4 to 6 years, you've got to have this conversation. Yeah. It's coming. It's there. Yeah. And we often assume the answer to that conversation. We often assume that, what's an example? I'm an ET, they can't get rid of me. We assume these things that are assumptions, not intentions, like I talk about in the book. An assumption will come back to haunt you. An intention is something that you can control. Mm-hmm. So, I think they're exactly the same. I do think there's some cultural differences, like ratings versus MOSs. I think all of DOD, every member in uniform should be MOS-driven, not rating-driven. And I think every member in uniform should have an explicit conversation, either at PCS orders or reenlistment, about whether it's even the best choice for them.
So you're talking about assumption and intention, and break down the difference of the two, because I want to start talking about intention, but I want to get your definition of the difference of the two, and then specifically the definition of how you define intention.
So I define intention kind of like commander's intent. I define intention as being, in essence, what's your vision and what's your mission? And for me, intention is intrinsic, it's internally driven, and it's internally derived. So I believe service is who we are, not what we do. People who join a military service join one of the 5 services for specific reasons they may not be able to define up front, but for something that resonates inside of them. And whatever that feeling is should transfer beyond and after the unit, regardless of the unit. Mm-hmm. So for me, intention is internal. And I know it's hard. I'm not trying to make it all woo-woo bullshit, but some of it is woo-woo bullshit. Some of it is. It honestly is. Some of it's about defending America, serving America, wanting to wear the banner, wanting to honor the stars and stripes. Some of it is wanting to protect those we care about the most. There are these parts of intention that we have. And then assumptions are the extrinsic, the things we expect from the culture around us that we cannot control, like a rating. A rating is nothing but a bundle of assumptions. It's not a bundle of intentions. Okay. People who progress through a rating intend to be chief petty officers. They intend to be warrant officers. They intend to be gunnery sergeants. They intend to be master sergeants. That's what they want to be.
And would the assumption be that they're good enough because they made it, even though behind the doors we don't know how they got it? Is like the assumption that a CEO is is smart and good at business when he may not be? Is that what the assumption may be? Like,